not on yet. You'll see it. Hey,
There it is.
welcome. So glad you are here today. We are going to rock the house today. We have Clay Smeltzer with us, and we're going to talk about so many things in 3, 2, 1. Let's do it. Welcome. This is the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. I'm Vickie Helm. This is a coffee break show, and it is brought to you by Metadime Digital Network. Welcome, everyone. Listen, today is the Wednesday welcome day, and we have the most incredible guest today. And I want to tell you, today is the day that we are going to celebrate men. That's right, girlfriends. We are going to lift our men up, and we're going to lift the good men up. We need to talk about the good men out there who are doing wonderful things for us today. And we're going to talk about how to have a sense of purpose. Look, everybody's on it, and I bet my boots, this must be your buddy. This is probably Ryan. Ryan, is this you? Do me a favor. Tell me who this is. Hey, Clay. Good morning. I see you guys popping on. Do me a favor. If you're new to the show, put your name down below so we can see you. This is the Smart Life Club. Well, I'm sorry. This is the coffee break show, and we go live every single day, Monday through Friday. We share tips, tools, techniques, motivation, inspiration, and all the kinds of things that you can have to create thrivability in our world. And today, in order to create thrivability, we have to celebrate both female and males and become kind of a communion instead of diversity. We are, partners instead of enemies or power struggles. And I just want to welcome you here today, Clay. Thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show with us. And, do me a favor. I want to just give them an idea of who you are. Not only are you a teacher, but you're a consultant and you're a coach, and you specialize in helping men with their finding purpose and meaning. And it's all relevant to women as well, but you help men. And I want to celebrate. We have so many good men. And instead of, men are being bashed all the time, don't you think? I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as a men's coach, we feel that, and that's one of the big conversations that we have a lot of the times. Because the world that we live in now is very different from the world that used to be, and the world that has been in our DNA. And I think this is where it really comes down to is biologically we operate, subconsciously we operate, but then there's the real world of what we operate in, and there's a big mix up. And I think now is the time to be able to really put into place some things that men can do. Not only help ourselves, but expand to everybody else. And that's what it's about. When we help ourselves, we can expand to everybody else. And we have this dichotomy, like you said, of men and women. And together, man, men and women can do awesome, really, really great.
Awesome things. In fact, I want to talk about the potential of that going into this. Well, we're in a pandemic economy and we're here. Let's talk about the potential of what you do, talking about purpose and meaning and finding what's the potential for men and women to be working together and to really make a significant change right now. What's the potential for that significant change? You get what I'm asking?
I think, absolutely. And I think it's exponential change. I think, and we talk about multipliers and stuff like that, but when you have exponential growth and exponential expansion of people, I think that's where the really big change comes throughout history, is when groups of men, groups of women came together to make this gigantic change. And it wasn't just at one time, but it's these series of small things that not a whole, maybe entire group, but every individual in that group did, in order to make the larger piece kind of fit together. Just like any business that you run, it's not just the leader that makes it run, it's everybody there that makes it run. And that's where I think, especially in the United States, I work with people all over the world, but especially in the United States, I think it's very important that we come together as a society as one.
Yes.
And not just separated. I just hate any time where there's this division of things. And that can happen with men and women. It can happen with race. It can happen with religion. It can happen with politics. You know, all of those things. Let's just become one throughout our whole entire world and just be here together. And I think that really comes back to 3 things. Is 1, owning yourself. And is when you own yourself, that's everything. That's the good, that's the bad, that's the awesome stuff you love about you, and that's the shadow that lays in the
That's
back
right.
we're talking about.
That shadow self that nobody wants to admit they have.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's owning that first. And the second thing is loving your story. Every single one of us, we write our own story from the time that we were born or conceived, whatever your thoughts are there, to the time that we pass away. And your story is that. They say it's the dash that's on your gravestone. What are you going to write? And the story, because we have in our story what we wrote already. And for me, a lot of times it was, I didn't really like the story I wrote. You know, it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. But because I looked at it in a different way, well, I had to look at it in a different way to really love that piece of me. It's the story that I write right now with you and I here in the present. And then there's the story in the future that I'm going to write. We have control of all of that. And I get a lot of pushback sometimes when I say this, but I say, listen, you are exactly in life where you are at because of the choices that you have made.
That's correct. That's the bottom line. Yep. I want to talk about this too, because I saw this come up and I was like, this is a tough question right now, because I wonder what it is. It says, looking for the good men. I don't want to bash men. It's hard to find the right synergy. And it's interesting because synergy is in itself a completely different description of a relationship. Yep. And what does it mean to have the right synergy? Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, in this, the thing that I believe that's happening right now is there's so much transformation that we're making choices. And you just said that you are where you are in your life because of choices you've made. And now we're coming up to this open place where you can make vastly different choices. And those vastly different choices, aren't those the ones that are going to create the synergy that some women are hoping to have? Yeah. And, Sherry, I got to be honest, I'd love to hear more about what you mean about synergy, because a synergy to me is something you work at inside your marriage. And I don't care if your marriage is the opposite sex or the same sex. To me, one of the most important things that you just said was that we see ourselves as one, as humanity, and not separate people, separate colors, separate genders. We want to go ahead and be in a state of oneness. And when you said that, I thought to myself, he's got a lot of consciousness to say that. Mm-hmm. A lot of awareness and consciousness. Tell me something about what you've gained. There's this story you tell about being 35, I think it was, and sitting down and saying, something ain't right. This wasn't and you had a panic attack watching a TV show.
Game of Thrones, that's what it was.
Okay, well, that'd explain it. I've never watched a game of not one episode yet, but you had a panic attack and said, something ain't right. Tell us about what you learned, what opened your consciousness up to see people instead of genders and races and statuses and things like that.
And I think really what it comes back to, and I think it was Sherry who said that, is, are you talking about the synergy in a relationship, or are you talking about men in general? I think that's a question. I'm going to kind of go back to that. But yeah, that really, and I'll give you a brief little history of myself. I've been divorced twice. My first marriage was coming out from high school into college, and we got married after that. Had my daughter. After that, then we split. I worked back through owning myself, because at that point in time in a marriage, that marriage there, I felt worthless because of the circumstances that happened. It's something that I didn't necessarily know was coming. I knew there were some things that we needed to work on, but it really made me feel worthless as a man, as a father, and as a husband. Yeah. So I had to come back out of that. So I built myself back up and did different things. I got married for the second time, had my son. During that time, though, in that experience, I realized I married for validation from somebody else. And
interesting.
Because of things that happened, she made me feel validated as a man, as a husband, and as a father. It went back to the whole things that I thought I dealt with, but I didn't really deal with. So that validation, after that, things ended, and it got back to this building point again. So that building point came through a lot of chaos, things like that. I was really kind of just surviving there, working 2 jobs, master's program, the child support, fighting for custody, all those different things that we have to go through, and which all made me stronger, which after that, I met my wife 6 years ago, going 7 years ago, and things were good. And that's where I got out of the chaos in survival mode. But I thrived in survival mode. And then when I got out of survival mode and things were great, I got out of the debt, got out of all those different things. We had a house, had a car, had a great, our family was together, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting on a couch watching a Game of Thrones episode, and the scene, if anybody out there was a Game of Thrones watcher, it was whole door scene where they're running through this tree, and these ice zombies are in there, but one of the characters got trapped. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt trapped, not because of my world, because everything around me was going good.
Yeah.
And if you looked at a picture and you painted it up and say, hey, like things should have been awesome, I should have been happy, excited. But internally, I stopped. My growth wasn't occurring internally. And I'm a person, one of my big values is I have to be growing all the time. Because when growth stops, decay starts. And I was decaying. So I wasn't taking care of what I call the 4 foundations, which is your body, your mind, the bonds, and the bills. I wasn't taking care of all 4 of those. I let those slip. I let them go. And what I found out is that mentally I went back into this anxiety spiral. And anxiety was something that controlled me. Oh, sorry, not controlled. I allowed it to control me for about 15 years of my life because, well, as a man, and this is where we get into the ego, the pride, all that kind of stuff. My ego and pride said, I can try to take care of it myself. And I didn't say stuff. And this is where a big thing for men, and especially, and this might go back to what Sherry's saying, is that women would like men to communicate more, but we're very shameful people.
Absolutely.
And that shame held me back because I'm like, well, if I tell my wife that, I feel anxiety, I feel that, man, she'll think less of me as a man, which is not the case. It was me mirroring what we have. A great book. I actually got it here. Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie.
Oh, yeah. I love Debbie Ford. Awesome. I knew the second you said shadow, I was like, that man has done some work.
Yeah.
You've done some very deep work. I want to say that this is something really important to me. I've never heard this before from a man. And when you said it, it melted my heart. My heart went up in my throat because I could feel my dad, my grandfather, my brothers, my everything. Women don't think men feel shame.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, women don't believe men feel shame. And we're taught that men only have 2 emotions. And that is, I'm either happy, laughing, or I'm angry. These are it. And all the other emotions are bypassed. And you just touched such a soft point, because I think being human and being able to come together is that the expectations women have learned about men may not be true.
Correct.
What the story you've heard about men, that might not be true.
No.
And just the same way women are afraid to say something to a man, maybe a man is afraid to say that. When you said that, like the floodgates open, I could feel my dad, who I never saw cry. He never expressed shame. He always had those 2, I'm happy or I'm angry. Those are it. And that beautiful, open-hearted statement that you just made this gapped bridge between my lineage line past and this moment right now, and our sons coming up the way we want our sons to be. I want to pop by here because here's one of my favorite male stories right here. I love Stephen.
Stephen, you're awesome.
Yeah, he's so awesome. Most people don't look deep enough to know themselves. And that, I think, is the issue. I remember one time somebody told me, you've heard that story about when you're a spiritual being having a human existence. And the truth is, when you die, are you a man or a woman? So isn't being a man or a woman simply an experience in this human meat suit? Because you're not a man or a woman when you die. So the expectations or the thought that we think there's a difference between men and women, maybe there is physically, but that thing that you just said, I'm ashamed, and the 4 B's, could you go over them again? It was like bonds.
It's your body, your mind, your mind, your bonds with others, and your bills.
Body, mind, bonds and bills.
Yep.
Man, I think that is oh God, that's fantastic. So I like this. I grew up loving who I am, but yet the journey of never ending improvement. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, you were like, hey, if you're not growing, you're kind of dying in there in that sense. And I think that's true for everyone. But I think men have gotten lost in that they don't know where to grow. It's like women, we know where to grow. We have natural growing, Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how would you suggest? And I want to pop here. This thing right now is going crazy. And it's so full. I want to just talk about this. This is one of my favorite men in the whole planet. How true, Clay, this is to realize we are the creators of our own reality, every thought, every action. But unfortunately, many of us do not want that level of accountability. That's so true. And that terrifies many people. They do not want the level of self-realization. Could you imagine if from youth, we were all taught from youth that it was okay to do that? Could you imagine?
Yes.
Yeah. I like this.
Yes. Nowadays, yes. Before, no. It's different. And I think, we talked a little about a pre-show, is that men, we have, men and women have this DNA for thousands and thousands and thousands of years that is in here. It's a subconscious program. Just like when we look at, I forget what animal it was, but one of my kids said, well, why does that animal do that? I totally forget what it was. But because it's instinct. It's subconsciously, it's what their brain tells them to do. They have to do this. Oh, it was the bee. When my son got stung by the bee, he said, why do bees sting? I was like, because they get scared. And when they get scared, they have this mechanism. We also have that as men. We also have that as women. We have that as humans for thousands of years, that this has been going over and over and over, and it's in here. But we're at this point in time, like you said, and I think it was getting to, is that there's now a difference of how men should be now than versus what it was. Go back to prior to 1900s. Men are provide, protect. That's our thoughts. That's where we go. Okay, provide, protect, security, safety, all those different things. When we go back there, it was provide food and protect your lands and protect your family. So that means the more that I could kill things, whether it be animals or protect our land by people, things like that, the more that would give us status. The more status we had, the more land we could get, the more opportunities we had, the more money we could get, and the more women we could procreate with and have children with, and so forth. We don't need that now. Like, that's not the society and the world that we live in now. So so we get to the 1900s, and that industrial age comes along. We get that. We had this transformation of the world, the way it acts and the way it goes. And now we're in today, where men have really felt like we've lost that way that was for thousands and thousands of years. This is what we do. We're men. And that's where it's like, we're physical beings. We're that. And it's like, how do we take that energy? How do we take that mindset? And how do we utilize it now? Now, I'll give you an example for my anxiety. I talk about like medieval times. If I was medieval times, I have ADHD and anxiety. And it's like, man, I would, like, every king would have wanted me. Why? Because I have the ADHD and those processes and stuff like that is the same stuff that I would have utilized in battle to move faster, to see quicker, to react more, and all of those different things. That's the anxiety piece and the ADHD, because it heightens everything. I always say when a deer runs out in front of you, you have those slow moment motions where you're like, oh, I'm going to take this. That's anxiety kicking in. But for me, sitting on a couch, watching a TV show, and anxiety kick in, why did I need it then? I didn't. And the problem with me and where this shame came from is like, we're fixers, we're doers, we're providers, protectors. If I couldn't provide and protect and fix myself, how was I going to fix my family? Woo, there we go, a little emotional. But
no, I want to stay with that, because I think that's the important thing. And I hear that emotion, because the second you said that, my heart went up in my throat. And I think, because I think my dad had that. It's interesting that you say this. My dad had all, girls, and my biological father had all girls. And he was super, super protective. And that's all he could do was do that. And if he couldn't do that, there was a complete and utter loss of self.
Yep.
Like the thing is, it's almost like I don't mean to say this in a rough way, but it's like we have treated men for thousands of years like, bring it home. And if you can't bring it home, you ain't a man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so his back's broken now. He's no good. He ain't no man. He can't work. He can't do this. It's like, it's burdensome to think that. And I'm certain there are men out there who think, I'm only the breadwinner. I'm not really, part of this family. I don't know how to be part of this family. I'm just the guy who goes, sweats his, what off, and then comes home and brings home the bacon to my family to make sure my family is okay. And I think what you just said there, it's like that feeling, that hurt feeling is like, for me, I would have liked to known my father differently. I would have liked to known him how you're presenting it. I would have liked to known that man, that heart, somewhere in there. And I think we need more dads like that. And I could see if you're a dad and all you're doing is just bust and hump, no wonder why you would feel like that. No wonder why it's like, if I can't take care of my family, who am I? What am I?
Yep. And that also comes back to
pressure.
If I can't, and for me, it was like, I have anxiety. I'm having an anxiety attack and a panic attack over a TV show. If I can't take care of myself, how am I going to take care of my family?
Yeah.
How am I going to provide? So then that's where shame comes in. And going back to the shame is men feel shame. I'm going to say that there's no statistic for this. I'm just saying this is 1,000% more than women feel shame. We just never say anything about it. We don't talk about it because why? And this goes back to for thousands of years. We just went and worked. We just went and did. We're doers. We're beers. We're all these. But the problem is that we don't want to talk about the things that we don't want to talk about because they're uncomfortable. Women are very good at throughout the ages of talking and having those things. Men
We're allowed that.
Yeah.
It's like part of the girlfriend bond.
Yep. And it's like, go with that. But for men to do that, well, if you cry, just like I cry over movies. I'll watch it. I'm watching The Good Witch, and I've teared up over that. It's a Hallmark piece. I love Hallmark stuff. But like for me, like to say that before, I would have never said that. Why? Because then I would have looked less than. But that judgment isn't even of other people. They wouldn't have cared. But I cared. It mirrored off of that. And that's the judgment on myself of feeling less than or showing emotion. When I went through all of that and I came out of going through that and being in that spiral and just feeling stuck and feeling lost and feeling defeated, when I came back out of that feeling of making sure of oneself, of owning oneself was the biggest thing that really got out. And if I can own all of me, all the stuff I love, but all the shadow that I hated, and realize that a lot of the shadow that I hated was very beneficial to me throughout my life. Mm-hmm. And I could use that, but I could also show that, talk about it, have conversations. That's why I'll talk about anything. I'll be vulnerable about anything. I'll say it. And why? Because people need to know, and men need to know, well, for me, you're more of a man because you're able to deal with those emotions, feel it, step into those emotions, and then step up to lead rather than sending it. It's easy to send it to the back of my brain and say it doesn't exist. I did that for 15 years and suffered on an island by myself. But I did that to myself. And that's where it's like, no, we have to be able to show that. I had a conversation with one of the movies we watched, which I cried at. I forget what it was. A great movie. But it had this song in it from a band called Need to Breathe. And another song from them at a time in my life where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Very hurt, very pain. It's where I felt worthless as a father, husband, and so forth. A man, because he cared enough, came to me and gave me that song in a hotel gym while we were at a business conference thing. One of the biggest guys in the world thought of me during this song and gave that to me to listen to me. And I was standing in hotel gyms are not big, but there's 60 people crammed in this thing probably. I'm at a bench and a wall full of mirrors and all these people around me. And he said, "Hey, I want you to listen to this song. I thought of you." And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, "No, wait, you thought of me?" I'm like, "Okay." I was like, all right. So I started listening to this song. And as I was doing that, I put the weights on my shoulders and was doing shoulder presses here like this.
Mm-hmm.
I had 1,000-pound weights because I'm super huge. No, I'm just kidding. But
Totally
I had,
ripped.
yeah. But looking at it, as soon as the words start, my chin dropped to my chest, my eyes filled up, tears started dropping to the floor, and I'm holding these weights here, and it was
Yeah.
it was the weight of it was all the hurt, it was all the
Yeah.
pain, all of that. I mean, I'm going back to it now, right now. I mean, every time I talk about it, I talked to my girls the other week, and it was like this sobbing that like I couldn't get words out. My girls are just looking at me like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to tell you this." And so the song came, and then the chorus came, and it said, it's called "Washed by the Water." The song title is by
Yeah.
Need to, and so the chorus basically says, "When the rains fall and the storm comes, you'll be washed by the water." And to me, let me pause for a second. Going through all of that stuff, in the end, I knew I was going to be okay. And that's the day I stopped saying why me, and started saying why not me. And that's the day that from that I put my head up, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I don't know if there was nobody around to me, but it was just me in the mirror. And I just, for the rest of the song, I just was going, do whatever this weight is, whatever this hurt is, whatever, I'm going to lift it. I'm going to keep going. And to sit there and share that with my daughters, um,
Mm,
just in that time, and for them to see, I'm getting teary eyed now. It's all right, but just to
I
see
love it.
them see that in me and be able to communicate with them and how important that is something I think that is important that men need to do. And I'm okay being on here in front of I don't know how many people, but having tears in my eyes, it's okay. I'm gonna have to wipe them here soon. But doing that because it's important. It's important for men to be able to step into that so they can step up to lead. Because when we don't step into our feelings and we don't feel those, we leave it sit, we push it back, we don't want to feel it, then that leaves us with this inner turmoil and this fight inside of us to say, I feel less than, or that shame.
Mm.
And it's like, no, you don't feel less than because you feel it. You feel more than because you stepped into it. And now I can step up to help other people. And again, back to self, when I get this right, I can expand exponentially out to everybody else.
Yes. That I think is undoubtedly with anyone. When you get this inside right, the outside suddenly can reflect. I left this up for a long time. One of my favorite men on the planet, intelligence and heart rolled together. I love this. We all have the same emotions. It's how we hide them or display them is always very individual. And for men and there's women, I want to go over a couple of things about the difference in that men and women. It's almost like what society allows. And so growing up being a woman in this chapter of my life, and always girlfriends are allowed. It's like women bond with our women friends. There's such a bond, and we get to talk about everything. There's that Friends episode where Rachel is talking about the prior night with being the Star Wars person, and she tells her best girlfriend, and Ross is like, I can't believe you told them my fantasy. I mean, come on. And she said, we're girlfriends. We tell each other everything, every private everything. And that's, men aren't allowed to do that. They don't get to show their emotions in that way. I used to tease my friend and say, you're like a man. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, you think an entire conversation. This is an entire sentence, an entire conversation for men. Ready? That was it.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the bar. You're like, and he's like, that's it. A head nod.
If it's up, it's because you don't know them. If it's down, it's because you know them.
Oh, there you go. There's the bro code right there. And part of the conversation is that girls are very deep. I mean, when we sit down, we're like, well, how did you feel? And then what did he say? And every last detail, everything and we're allowed to emote. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to laugh. We're allowed to do everything. And for men, there's been this indoctrination for centuries about not being that you don't share in that way. And so now I think in this new paradigm, that male bonding might be more of a conversation with using words versus gestures, I can't even do it right, but you know what I mean? A grunt, that typical new male. And I think what I sense, the thing that I love about talking about you is because your masculinity with heart, and your heart is so there, and it's so, there's nothing about you that becomes weaker. It's like you become a stronger man when you can stand in your heart. You can feel your feelings. You can describe them and be vulnerable. But that's with anyone, with women and men. It doesn't matter, women and men. As soon as you become consciousness, and consciousness is the value of your beingness, not the value of your knowledge, not the value of your gender, but the value of your soul, the value of who you actually are outside of your genderness. That's when the power of being human comes. And I think that's a gift of what he's saying is, let's move away from gender and this, and let's just come into humanness. And tell me something, give me 3 ideas how people can allow more humanness out, how their soul out, or that part of them that's vulnerable in there. How do we get to the point where we're moving past that ego, whether it's male ego or female ego, and just introducing ourselves to our humanness?
I think I'm going to come back to my 3-piece, my purpose itself. And that is 1, you got to own yourself. You got to own all of it. 2, you got to love your story. And 3, you got to go live with purpose. It's that action. It's taking those different pieces of you. Because what I found out is that when people don't fully own themselves, they're not going to fully give themselves. So for me, and going back to one of my shadows is being fake. Like I hate fake people. Well, the reason why I hate fake people is because I was fake a lot of my life. And that's why it was mirroring off of that. And I'll give an example. As a school teacher, I would walk into the building and people would say, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm doing great today." Totally lying. I was faking you out. Now, at the point in time, I didn't really realize it. I was saying I was good. I was being positive. I was being Mr. Positive. I was called that a lot, Mr. Positivity. And it's like, yes, I was being positive because that's how I work. But the problem was I was actually lying to myself because I didn't want to deal with the things that were really hurting me. Because at that point in time in my life, and I didn't want them to see what I was going through. They didn't see the struggle that I had. They didn't see the struggle. They didn't see me at home at my kitchen table opening up that envelope and my rent going up to $1,000, and I was only living on $972 a month. They didn't see that, but that I did. But I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." And the problem was, I walked around not knowing that. And then it got to the point where life got better. And that point of like, things were great, things were good. But internally, I wasn't still. And that was the big lie, is because then I kept saying, "Yeah, I'm good," which I had all this internal stuff and I wasn't really saying what it was. Until I owned that, until I owned every piece of me, I could not love my story and I could not live with purpose.
Yes.
I could not communicate with other people in an effective manner and be vulnerable and have them really know who I was, because I wasn't owning myself anyways. They were getting a version that I wanted them to see, not the version that is actually me. And that's where it's like, as I started to create, it started to develop purpose-infused coaching. It started to develop the consulting. It started to develop that and talk with people. I just started to become real. And I'm like, whether you read my stuff, whether you talk with me on the phone, whether you see whatever, you're going to get the same person. That's
right. No matter where you are, who you are, where you are. Yes, that's where authenticity is everything. And you know what you just said applies to everyone. I want to share this with you because just earlier you talked about sharing with your daughters and saying and talking to your daughters. And Susie wrote something that I thought was so powerful and so important. She says, "I come from a family that has 6 girls. My brother passed away at 13. My father was so kind and shared so much and taught us so much. I've never felt uncomfortable with guys. I trust them the same as I do girls because of my father." And I want to talk about this. This is so important because one of the issues that women have is that, there's so much abuse from men in that way. And looking at this right here, sharing with your daughters right there, this is the key point. Raising women like this, raising women so that, because I got to be honest, the thing I was raised with is, and the story is, men will always try to sexually abuse you. They will always try to hurt you. They will always try to beat you up, and I grew up in a house where my dad was extraordinarily violent. I thought all men are
Yep.
violent. And there's still part of me that believes that when I get around a man and I get that feeling, get away from him, I get away from him. And there's this thing where women are always walking around with that. I want to get to know him. I want to be close to him, and I'm scared of him. And that is a big issue, I think, right there that separates women and men. It's
Yeah.
because there's now, are all women great? No, I don't think so either. But if there is an identity where we think that men do this and women do this, and we just say, no, unconscious people hurt people, hurt people. It's
Correct.
not gender coordinated. And Susie made a very strong point. If we raise our women to understand good men, they'll attract good men. You attract what's around you. And I think that's so, so important.
And honestly, that's my responsibility as a father, is to do that. It's to show my girls what a good man is, and also my son. That's my job. And I think there's two things that I wanted to hit on what you said there. Men are jerks. I'll say that men are jerks. There's a lot of them. They're just jerks. They're manipulators. They try to get it's sex, money, and rock and roll, all that kind of stuff, And it's like, yes, there are a lot of that. What you call player or whatever it may be out there, whatever it may be. But there's a lot of times that occurs because, again, it comes back to self. They don't want to own themselves. They don't want to say, hey, yes, I really feel for this person. Commitment to this person is scary. What if I get hurt? Because that's where a lot of it comes from. What if I get hurt? I'm married this is my third marriage. Usually after the first one, especially after the second one, the statistics go way, way, way down for men who are willing to get back into a third marriage. The thing with me, though, is I had to understand the vision that I have for the family that I've always wanted and the woman that's with me. There's a risk. There's a risk I could get hurt. There's a risk I could get my heart ripped right out of my chest. But I'm willing to take it because I believe in love enough in order to do that. But I was willing enough to say it. I was willing enough to do it. And I think that's one of the things is, yes, we have that perception in our society because we got the macho man, this blah, 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 big bad guy. That macho man stuff I can't stand. But I used to be that guy too, know, and it's like, but I had to learn from it. I had to go through it to learn from it. I also want to say there's a concept too is anger. I want to go into that because you said that. And when a man gets mad, a lot of times women feel scared and children feel scared.
Yeah.
So because listen, we can be very, very physical. And when we get angry, that's where we want to go. Go back to our DNA, our history. That's what we've done. When we get angry, we go to war. When we get angry, we go to fight. We go to do those things. We go to battle. And it's like now in a space where we don't necessarily have that. When men get angry, women feel scared, children feel scared. But we have to kind of break away from that because yes, I can be angry, but it's not to the point where it should be scary. You know what I mean? And that's where it's like, I can feel that way. We were told as men, never show anger, never show physical, any of that stuff. Why? Because it makes you look bad. But I'm feeling that. I feel that energy. And the more I hold that energy in, the more it's stored up for potential energy to explode. And then at some point in time, I just blow up. And I'm like, that's not okay. I can be angry. Men can be angry. You can't hurt other people. You can't attack people. You can't do those things. That's wrong.
And that's the issue right there. It's like there's a level of living conscious male or unconscious male, and an unconscious male escalates. They escalate based on their ego, and it goes from, it's like they want submission at that point. Unconscious male wants submission, and they'll escalate till they get that. So if yelling doesn't work and manipulating doesn't work, and then violence doesn't work, and then it's constant. It's that all it is rubbing that ego. Now, I want to let you know, women have that same unconscious ego either, except We don't hurt men the way men hurt us. Men escalate violently, and women escalate more manipulatively. It's like, I'll spend you into oblivion. I'll ruin your reputation. It's like, it's both there. It's basic. Are you going to be conscious in this relationship or unconscious? How do you slay your ego in the moment when you feel angry? What do you do?
Correct. And for me, it was a lot of training. Really, it was a lot of just
Debbie
push it
Ford.
down. Yeah, it's a lot of, like, I had to understand that I had ego, and that ego is good to move you forward in things, to say, hey, yes, I can accomplish that. But when it goes over that certain level, and especially with men, we can blow our ego up real easily. But when we do that, it's over the limit of really trying to be conscious of what we're doing. It's an emotional reaction instead of a thought reaction. And before I used to do that, and through my divorces, I've had that's probably my biggest test, is to really take that and be patient and allow myself to be thought reactive, and train myself to be thought reactive instead of emotionally reactive, and take the emotion out of it. And then another thing with that is expectation. We have so much expectation of other people and ourselves, especially men. We have this expectation. I'm going to try to use this window here. Here's the expectation of what we can achieve, but see, my arm goes way out of the screen. That's, as men, that's what we think our expectation is, way up there. Really, here's our reality. So when our expectation, our realities don't meet, whether it's a relationship, whether it's with somebody else, whether it's ourselves, whether it's a situation, an event, whatever it may be, that expectation doesn't get met, then our reality and those don't match up. Then we have an internal struggle. I think, and I forget, I think it's called The Way of the Seal. And I forget if that's a book, but I'm pretty sure that was the book. And in there, the guy said, get rid of expectation, throw out expectation for everything, and just go with the experience. And I'm like, that's something that I really had to try to practice, especially with anxiety, because there's always the worry of what's going to happen. And I'm like, nah, get rid of it. Just experience it, man. Just have a good time. And I think that's one of the two things there is, yes, we have to take ownership of those feelings of ourselves. I think in society has to let us own those feelings without being shamed for it, without being looked down or feel less, because we do feel those feelings. And I think that's the pressure as men that we feel, is that, well, we can't feel that because we're going to feel less than, when in all reality, it all comes back to you, because it's the judgment on yourself, not other people. That's where
that's the whole thing Scott was saying over here. It's so funny how fake we are, even, or especially to ourselves. And it's like, if you can't get real with yourself, you aren't getting real. It's like, you can't even, everybody's like, oh, I want enlightenment. I want to get to my higher self. I want to be as Christ-like as I can be. They want to be that way. It's like, you aren't getting here if you can't get real. 100% of the time, not sometimes, not, oh, I'm real 70% or 80%, 100% of the time. That loving yourself, that soulful power. I love what people are saying. I want to show you this because I thought it was really cute. I just want to say this. I feel like the Grinch. I feel like my heart just grew 10 sizes just listening. I mean, come on, that is just as really cool as saying thank you. That's so cool. I want to keep going down here because the conversation, if I showed you how much was here, it'd blow your mind. Let's see. I like this. This is, thank you, Clay. This is really important to me. I like this right here. We need more voices of authenticity and heart demonstrating it's okay. Forging the way for new generations. Thank you, Clay, for taking the bold step of modeling outside of the norms. I think this is so important.
Yeah, can I stay on that generation thing?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. And, when we look at everything that's happening in the U.S. with race and stuff like that, I had no idea. I learned about it in history, Martin Luther King and stuff like that. I had no idea how close that was to us. I had no idea. When we look at it, I'm only the second generation out from segregation. That's it. My parents were first generations out.
I'm first
generation. So my grandparent that I spent time with last week, he grew up as a child saying that, knowing that was the norm. My parents grew up saying this isn't okay. They
Yes.
taught me to say, for me, I don't even see it. I just don't, I don't get it. I don't get why it doesn't matter. So we are the changers. Now, my generation of kids or my generation, the 20-year-olds to 50, 60-year-olds who have kids that are in the realms into a teenager, it's our generation now that goes to the next generation that says, hey, there is no difference. And it was
There
nice
isn't.
that our kids kind of talked about it, and they're like, I don't get why all this stuff is happening. I'm like, oh, thank goodness for teaching, the right thing,
Yeah.
because I had we hear about it, and I had other conversations with our men's group, and they're like, I didn't even realize that. And they're like, yeah, man, like one of the guys that comes in as a member, he's a men's coach as well in Maryland. He walked with Martin Luther King, and I'm like, are you serious? I'm like,
Wow.
I was thinking like nobody's
Wow.
around anymore for that. But I'm like, we never really take the time to think about what has occurred, whether it's in history or ourselves, then we never really take the time to think about what's now and what's going to be in the future. So, and I think that's one of the biggest things is it's a generation right now for men and women. It's a generational change. It is our
Yes.
responsibility to put into place what we don't like now and what's there. Now, not everybody's going to do it. We all know that. But as a whole, come together as one and say, listen, here's what men are about. Here's what women are about. They can be great. They can do these things.
Yeah.
Women
Work
can,
together, change the world, make it a better place.
absolutely.
You know, it's breathtaking to hear you speak, and I'm really enjoying the conversation so much. I'm going to continue going, and we may go over an hour a little bit. Is that okay with you? Great,
I'm here
because
for whatever.
one of the things that I think is so important about this whole thing that you talked about, Morgan Freeman once said, he's got this thing. He said, "Well, do you believe there's racism?" And he said no. And he goes, "Well, what would you do to solve racism?" And he said, "I would stop talking about it, and you stop calling me a black man, and I'll stop calling you a white man, just man." And
Yes.
that, that unity and bonding between the males, as it's got to stop being about race. It needs to be about, women can have more diversity. We're like that. We can have all the women together, and we just see ourselves as women, and we know what it's like to raise children, and etc. Are exceptions to the rule? Yes, I'm certain there are some racist people out there. I don't know how they got here, but we all bleed red. So when we look at the future, we look at what's happening right now. The thing you said that's so important, there's such an incredible opportunity to erase all of these differences, these mindsets, these beliefs, these stories that have been passed down into generations about why you should feel this way about another race or another person or another everything. That's the opportunity here. If it's like being conscious, and the whole important fact that we as a world could actually come together and become a human body, not a separate country, not a separate, it's like celebrating sexes, celebrating what women can do and what men can do, celebrating women's leadership and men's leadership, celebrating instead of separating. That would be the thing that needs to come. It's tribal, and yet it's also conscious. I just want to go here. Yes, he is, Ryan. This is a powerful show. Thank you. I've raised 3 boys. I raised them to respect girls. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And if they respect each other and they respect themselves, Stephen, I feel the respect you have for women. Now I know why it started. Yes. Looking at this here, Vickie, you're such a powerful interviewer. Thank you, Ryan. That's so sweet. This is the man of the hour. I'm so glad to see you, Stephen, by the way. It's nice to see you here. I came from that age where women were taught to grow up, find a good man, and let the man take care of you. Today, I say BS to that paradigm. Me too. Me too.
Yes.
To me, the future is about partnering with your husband. partnering, being a team, getting your business life together, your love life together, your family life together, your community life is together. It's like, I love being married. I love it. And I'm so proud of my family. And I'm so proud of everything that's been built and developed together, and so proud to be working with such incredible genius every single day. And my male friends that I love so much, listen, I just want to go here. This is the book that Clay and Vickie are talking about. Thank you very much for putting it up on there. So true. Men have a lot of expectations, but they cannot manage them. Yes. And there's, I think, a lot of pressure put on men. I mean, unnecessary pressure. Yes, there's unnecessary pressure put on women as well. It goes both ways. But today we're talking about the ones that happen with men. Expectations are a planned resentment. Yes, that was lovely that you talked about, because that's true for both sexes. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with parents who prepared me to be self-sufficient. That's right. I did too. My dad was like, it was weird. My dad was very violent with my mom. It was really terrible. But with his daughters, he wanted us to be absolutely, you don't need a man, you want a man. That's a difference. Mm-hmm. You don't want a man because you need him. You need a man. And, you know, and that, I think, for women, I want you to flow my dad's words here. My dad said, you never need a man. You want a man. Make sure that that's the man you want with all your heart. I mean, the man you're willing to go to the mat for, the guy that's the man you want to marry. This is the book that Clay was talking about. Wow, brilliant. Thank you so much. Oh, I like this hashtag. Clay Smeltzer is a hero. I think he is. He's the new man. I think that's really important to say right now. Yes, my kids say the same thing. They're 30. They're fighting the bigotry of my generation. That's right. It's unfortunate and it's true. Here we go. Men who cry are not weak. Men who allow themselves to cry are stronger than other men. Yes, because they're allowed to be vulnerable and show themselves. One day, Karen and I'll be as good as with the hashtags. Yes, you will. This generation right now, I'm praying for our nation. To me, it appears that they're all about what they want and not what is good for everyone. That may be true, but they're going to be growing up very soon, and I trust them. I trust this next generation because they're out of the box. They're not in the box, and I'm very proud of them. And I think they're going to show us some stuff that we don't know. And I love this. We're all citizens of the planet. Thank you. I like this. Morgan is a profound thinker. Thank you. I think that's probably true about Morgan. Such an enlightening conversation. Very timely. Thanks, Metadime team. Thank you so much. I want to say this. Yes, Scott, the most significant part is how fake we are with ourselves. I want to go to Scott here. We are focusing on it so intensely that it can't help, but just blow up everywhere. History is full of inequity. It always will be. It's the expectation that it won't is the problem. We are imperfect beings. Yes. The expectation conversations. I'm sorry. We talked about so many things they're answering. Celebrate instead of separate. Yes. Celebrate instead of separate. Vickie, you're profound. Together is the answer. Thank you so much. Risa, I also taught my two sons how to treat women, and they go above and beyond being great husbands and dads. My youngest son recently divorced her choice, and his most important focus is their daughters. That's so true. You know, I want to tell you something. Women have labeled men as deadbeat dads. Yeah. And society, there was this deadbeat dad syndrome. I don't think they exist. I think this guy right here, he was a single dad that raised two beautiful children. My grandmother as a child had an old man, George, who lived on the farm. They had remodeled caboose on their property where George lived. She was very quiet about it and revealed was he was originally a slave. After slavery was abolished, he was nowhere to go. So he stayed with them till his death. And he was a very old man. Wow. Donnie, that is such an incredible story. You guys are so much. And I really want to, I got Clay right here. He's agreed to stay over the hour, and I'm going to jump in with him. I see all your comments there. He's going to be on the filter there in the Facebook group as we're done. I just want to give a couple more questions for him, and then we'll let him go, and then you guys can have at him in the Facebook group. But, I just want to say this is such a timely conversation. And I don't think there are any accidents out there. But let me just ask you something. If you could say something to men right now that were feeling confused, that don't know or have a sense of meaning, maybe they feel like, they should just end it all. What would you tell them right now to help them restructure, rebuild, reimagine a different them?
So for me, I would tell them, and I believe in telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Because in a time where I wanted cuddled and coddled, somebody told me what I needed to hear. And that changed my life. So for those men out there who are at that point or are feeling confused, or even the ones who are like, man, my life is good, but it's just something more, step into your story. Step into who you are. Really go deep. Stop staying on the surface level. Go deeper. Go 2, 3, 4. Keep asking yourself. I always do the 5 whys. Why number 1? Why number 2? Get down to exactly who you are. Find that. Own yourself. Love your story. Then go live with purpose every single day. Don't wake up because, listen, be honest with everybody. We have no idea when our last day is. And if today is the day, my dad always taught me as an athlete to leave it on the field. And if today's my last day, I'm going to leave it all on the field today.
Yes.
And that's what we really need to do is just do that. Don't miss the opportunity to be the best version of you, because when you put that hard work into being exactly who you are, it's freeing and it simplifies life. My choice maker, does it help me own myself? Does it help me love my story? And does it help me live with purpose? If it does, I say yes. If it doesn't, I don't. My life became very simplistic when I found out exactly who I was. And
yes, as soon as you're willing to be who you are, whether you're a man or a woman, you are now the most powerful you can be. And you can actually transform, because you're actually transforming from the center of your core being. That is so important. I like this. I just want to acknowledge it. Yes. Marry the man you want, not the man you need.
And it's the same thing with men. As a man, I married one because it was the next step. My first wife. It was just the next thing. There was question. At the second marriage, I married for validation. There was question. My wife now, there was no question. I married her simply just for, there was nothing behind it other than I love being with this woman. I loved her for her. That was it. And I made for sure. I went through all the stuff before to make sure, like, hey.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one is the one. I know when I'm unwilling to quit, when I'm unwilling to throw the towel in, when I feel vulnerable, like it would crack my soul. I mean, literally crack my soul if I ended up in divorce. That's where you need to go. That's the place where it is. Clay Smeltzer, I'm glad I decided not to swim today.
I'm glad you're here with us too, Stephen.
I mean, that's just the best right there. Robin, I don't know. I was raised to be self-sufficient, but I have kicked dependence in the butt. That's good. So your life becomes easier when you find out who you are. Yes, your life becomes easier when you find out who you are. And for those men that are struggling out there, I really want you to listen to Clay's words. And maybe you're thinking to myself, I'd really like to be in conversation with Clay. I'd like to actually talk to the man and work with the man and maybe get some of my issues started in a new way. How can they get a hold of you? What can they do to work with you or be with you?
The easiest way is just reach out, and that's a lot of times some of the hardest thing to do is just reach out and say, hey, you know what, here I'm struggling with this. And sometimes I may be able to help. It depends on what it is, the situation. so they can reach out on social media. They can visit the website Purpose Infused Coaching that I have out there, and different links and stuff like that, and so forth. You know, depending on whatever is in. I'm always here to talk and chat as well. So, and then you know, with that too is the brotherhood that I created is about men coming together so we can have conversations like this and be able to extend that and be able to grow ourselves together. I believe in blossom where you planted, where you're, and
Yes.
I'm just looking to grow a whole bunch of men all over the world that are blossoming where they're planted.
Beautiful.
And whether it's something that you want to go out and do what I do and help other people, cool. Or if it's just something you want to stay in your family and do, that's cool. Like, this is all about you. I'm here to help you be the best version of you. As a teacher, that's what I do too. That's just, and when it comes down to all the things I've done in my life, when I look back at it, they all flowed with my purpose. I just didn't do the work to figure out exactly what that was.
Brilliant.
Even as an athlete, I did my purpose. That I was doing it then. I just had no clue because I didn't take the time to say, hey, this is what it is. And now that I have, now I just do that every day. So when I wake up, it's not that dreading going, oh, I got to wake up. It's like, all right, what's going to happen today? Let's go. You know?
Mm-hmm. I love this. You're a good man, Clay Smeltzer. And I think that's so important. Keep doing what you're doing. One ripple can change everything. I agree with that. And I want to say this right now. I know that there are many men out there who are feeling as though women disregard you. Mm-hmm. And I know there are women out there who are feeling that men disregard them. And I want to let you know that's a story. Mm-hmm. And the story is, I don't know how to share my heart with you in a way that makes sense. So I want to say, in this world of humanness, I want to tell all the men out there that I value them so much, and everything they do for us and everything they try to do for us. And I don't want to get caught in the story that just because there's Jeffrey Epstein and there are the Bill Cosbys of the world, there are also really good men. There are really good men in my life. And to JT and to Scott and to Donnie and to my dad and to my brother and to all the other men that are in my life, like my Uncle Vic, I know that you have gone to war for women. I know that you have protected me from men that were not really great. And I know that you have loved your families. To those men, I wish you the best and the most and the blessed life you could have, because we need more of you out there. And you are not forgotten by women. You are not. We love you and we honor you for that. And we honor who you are. Clay, it has been one of the most amazing concepts. Clay, what a concept. Blossom where you are planted. Looking forward to a conversation. You will bring peace one conversation at a time. Do you understand the power of that, Clay? What she just said?
Yeah, well, not yet, but I'm going to process that.
You're going to bring peace one conversation at a time, because that's what's missing. I want to go to Risa. I'm so proud of my sons for what they went through with losing their dad to suicide. They're good men to their families. That's right. Julian and Dustin, you are both very good men. Clay Smeltzer, you have changed the world today. You have put a big rock into a pond and the ripples are going to go out wide. And I want to say that I love who you're about. I love what you're about. And if you want to be involved with Clay, do it. Don't waste another day regretting or trying to figure it out or having a panic attack or anxiety or depression. Go ahead and find a group of men where you can talk this deeply. Find a way to be with other men of that way. Clay, blessing talking to you today. Absolutely loved it so much. Thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show. Thank you for staying late on the Coffee Break Show. Thank you, everyone else. And I just want to say it's coming in right now. These are all the people they'll start. Yes, thank you, Clay. Thanks for being here. That was a coffee break show today. Clay is going to be saying hi to people in the Facebook group right now. You can say hi to him. If you want to connect with him, send him an IM. Get on his Facebook group. Reach out. Don't be afraid. I'll see you guys tomorrow. That's Facebook group. Mwah! Peace out. This has been the Coffee Break Show. Thank you so much, Clay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hang on. Here we go. There we go. Now we're going off show. Okay.